All right, guys, good morning. It's Brandon. We're going to do part two to last night's video. So I kept it kind of simple on purpose to make you guys think, but there is a third possibility of how the cells communicate. And it is that the cells communicate with each other and they say we're going to do, 4 wide and 20 long, and that's going to be the length of the bone. Okay. And they all somehow, and obviously instead of 4 wide and 20 long, it's 4 million wide and 20 million long or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But the point is, um, okay, so let's say that they do that. That's an even higher level of communication on their behalves because now they all have to keep in contact with each other about who is technically where according to their communication grid, if you will. Which, again, if you had a really trained marching band that, started out with, well, they didn't have to start out with a bird's eye viewer, but let's say that they just trained themselves on how to do things. But the thing is, a marching band practices on a football field. You have a grid. The human body doesn't have a quote unquote grid. There's no background lattice to the universe. And those of you who say, yeah, there's space-time and Einstein's da-da-da-da-da, you guys are so stupid, okay? Ether is flowing by constantly, which is the flow of gravity, but neither here nor there. I'm not going to get into all that right now, but the point is this. There's no grid for them to, so everything would have to be relative. They'd all have to base their size and growth off of relativity. Now, one of the, I ended up putting up a video about a guy who was really smart in certain areas but really dumb in others. And the areas that he was really smart in was basically that he was explaining the part about the lactic acids, how they're produced in the cell when the cell has large quantities of glucose, and how cancer cells all have one thing in common, and that is that they produce a ton of lactic acid. Well, here's the thing. Let's take this down to simple terms. You have a dog. How much dog shit does a dog produce? Well, that's dependent on how much you feed the dog that it's willing to eat unlimited amounts of. So obviously, if you try to feed the dog only healthy food, it usually caps out after a while and says, I'm done. But if you feed the dog like unlimited chocolate and peanut butter and everything else that makes it feel like it's fucking eating crack, okay, like cocaine, it wants more and more and more. Okay. So at that point, too much dog shit's a problem, all right? So what's the real problem? It's what you feed the dog. Same thing is for the cells. If lactic acid is the problem, what's the root problem? The root problem is feeding the cells plenty of sugar and carbohydrates, okay? So when you feed the cells all these carbohydrates and sugars, excuse me, then they produce all this lactic acid. Now, what's interesting is he pointed out a very key thing. He said that when life first existed on this planet, or let's just say primitive life, we'll just say, like, when you go back to funguses and just these things, when you have very primitive life, even before fungus, okay, so you got plant cells and you have animal cells, and we're closer related to mushrooms than we are to plants. So plants went the other way. They inhale, CO2, not inhale, but they take CO2 and they spit out oxygen. We, on the other hand, our style cells eat glucose and eat oxygen and spit out CO2, okay, and this lactic acid. So once you understand that, so primitive cells of our kind that existed before you had advanced life forms, they just needed to be in the presence of glucose and in the presence of the right climate, and they would just grow like a fungus across the ground, across the bottom of the lake, wherever it is. They would just grow and grow. And that was like the essence of life, okay? Once you have advanced life forms, like what we are, and even a squirrel, okay, once you have these advanced life forms, even like a mouse, you have blueprints and architecture and discipline, okay? And cells which are adhering to an instructor, if you will, like a architect. Now you could say, well, all the cells are given that have that code from the get-go, and that's fine, but you still have, the egg and the sperm, so to speak, where, okay, now we're going to come up with a new code of what this new creature is going to be. Okay, and we're going to try this new variant, and we're going to copy and paste this code a bazillion times as this cells replicate as it's being created. But the point is, if a cell is back in the state where it has what it needs to survive, it's kind of like you, okay? It's kind of like a human being. Let's say you win the lottery tomorrow. What's the running joke? If I win the lottery tomorrow, I'm not going to work. I'm done. Okay. So, you win the lottery, you're done. You're not going to work. Got it. Okay, now, so now you're no longer under supervision. Maybe you're going to get into drugs. Maybe you're going to go out and do a DUI, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, you're going to self-destruct. You're definitely not beneficial to the people around you anymore. You say, yeah, I got a bunch of money, and I give them money. The money is only useful if they pay it to a person who is willing to do good for them. You, the person who's spending money, if you're not doing any good for mankind, then let's say we cloned you a bazillion times. Here's a bunch of money for you. 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 Now, none of you go to work. All of you just do whatever you want to do. At that point, there's no goods produced for mankind, right? So let's take this all back to the body. When cells are given enough sugar, and then all of a sudden they have a bunch of shit surrounding them, it could be that shit, that lactic acid, prohibits their ability to even hear what the other cells are saying, or it could be to the point where they just are like the lottery winner where they no longer care. Every cell in your body, I need to win the lottery, I need to win the lottery, I need to win the lottery, I need to win the lottery. Come on, God, give me the lottery, give me the lottery. Except I need some sugar and salt and fat today. Can you please feed me some sugar and salt and fat, and I promise I'll be happy then? Except for the fact that then you get cancer, okay? Not to mention all these other flavor additives and everything that they put in the foods that cause issues as well. But the point is, just give me some of that and I'll be good. I'll be good, I promise. So basically, obviously you see where I'm going with this. When you only feed your body what's necessary for, the liver and all these other things to go into a ketosis state, okay, where they're the ones producing the sugar that your body needs. They're the ones producing the glucose via these ketones or whatever the hell they're called, okay? It's like rocket fuel. It's very efficient. The reason why it's rocket fuel and very efficient is because it doesn't produce as much lactic acid on the flip side. You're back to feeding your dog the healthy food, okay? Your dog also knows that it needs to be good to its master because otherwise it's not going to get any food. Your body, all the cells in your body, when you're feeding the cells ketones, what if, and this is where the people need to start to conduct experiments if they want to better understand cancer. If you're feeding the cells only ketones, what if the quote-unquote cancer cells can't feed on the ketones, which they've already proven that to an extent. That's already supposedly common knowledge. So the point is, what if the ketones are simply not delivered to cells that are misbehaving? Where the cells that are misbehaving could be able to eat ketones or whatever it is, consume ketones, but they're not somehow given them. Or we know for sure, we'll put it this way, we know for sure that the cancer cells cannot exist on the ketones. They cease to be cancer or they die. So they cease to behave as a cancerous cell or they die. It's one of the two, okay? So they either go back to behaving properly or they die. So it's very much like a druggy human being, like an addict. As long as you keep the bad stuff away from them, they're okay. But the moment that you put them back on, allow them to have access to the bad stuff, they fall apart. Your body is the exact same way. Each one of your fucking cells in your body is a crackhead writing a letter to the president, praying every night to God, please, please, just more sugar, just more carbs, just more, please. Okay. So once you understand that, all those of you who are like, oh my God, I can't believe that these presidents and these world bankers and all these people are heeding to the complaints of humanity and that we're going into a socialistic society, understand something. You are the president, you are the God, and you are a hypocrite if you're a fat fuck. Okay? So don't be a fat fuck and sit here and lecture the world on what it's like to not be a contributor to welfare, because you are the welfare creator. Okay, you are feeding your cancer cells. You are feeding your fat cells. You're feeding the bad cells in your body so that all the other cells have a heavier load to carry. Literally, right? Okay, there we are. So with all that said, let's see. What else do we have? Okay. Let's create part 3 and just end this one because it's a good time to stop. So part 3 is coming. See ya.